What is going on, everybody? You are listening to WHIP, Philadelphia's #1 college radio station. I'm your host, John Cole, and this is State Your Case, the weekly podcast in which we talk about all political issues in the state of Pennsylvania, ranging from Philadelphia to northeastern PA, all the way out to Erie and southwestern PA. I want to make sure we touch on all the biggest stories in the state of Pennsylvania in the past week. So I want to start off this week talking again about the state actually as a whole. And these numbers have come out actually just very recently about the unemployment rate. We now know the numbers from March. They are officially out. And Pennsylvania's unemployment rate actually declined once again. So the March unemployment rate numbers come out, and for the fourth straight month, it's on a decline, falling 0.2%. So now PA's unemployment rate is 4.8%. It continues to be above the national average, though. Unfortunately for Pennsylvania, the national average currently stands at 4.5%. PA at 4.8, making progress, getting closer to that number, but still trailing. But a good sign for the economy in the state of Pennsylvania, in which 4 straight months we have seen a decline. So according to the Department of Labor and Industry, the civilian labor force increased by 7,000 and resident employment increased by 17,000. The unemployment count declined by 9,000. All promising numbers there. And of course, since we have that governor's race happening next year in the state of Pennsylvania, in which Governor Wolf will be seeking re-election. There's quite a few Republicans that have announced they want to seek that as well. We'll see that pan out next year, in which that will be the primary to see what Republican will be challenging Wolf. But, with the unemployment rate going down in Pennsylvania, that Governor Wolf's going to try to use that to his advantage, specifically that Pennsylvania's numbers, again, falling 0.2%. So just last month it was 5%. Now we're shy of 5%. So obviously, good sign for the Pennsylvania economy that the unemployment rate now is at 4.8%. And the interesting thing about this time of year, since we are in the month of April, it's about a quarter of the way of the year when it gets in terms of campaign financing. Now we know the numbers that have officially been released. So I want to go through some numbers about all the congressional representatives in the state of PA. And we have two statistics I specifically want to talk about today. One is the reports of what candidates and what representatives have raised the most money in the state of Pennsylvania that are congressional leaders. Some of these might surprise you. And then we also know who has the most cash in hand for their re-elections that will be in 2018. And why this is important to talk about, I think, is when it gives you an idea of any seats that are viewed as vulnerable. It's interesting to see what type of fundraising they're doing at this current time. And right now we have those numbers for the first quarter of the year. So here it is. So we know that obviously the groundwork's beginning. That election will be in November of 2018. Interesting enough, so the candidate that raised the most money in the first quarter was actually Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, the first-term congressman in PA 8 located in Lower Bucks County. He recently raised the most by a considerable margin as well. He raised $425,120, and of those contributions from Political Action Committee, it is $285,180 of it. But he's a significant portion ahead of everyone else, in which Fitzpatrick is the only representative to have raised over $400,000 for that first quarter in 2017. Coming up next is Representative Schuster from Bedford County. He raised $356,370. Of that, for PAC contributions, that would be $252,200. So significant PAC contributions from him as well. And again, he's not too far off. Again, he is second, but he is there's a pretty significant margin between Congressman Fitzpatrick and Congressman Schuster. The third is Congressman Cartwright in Luzerne County, the Democrat. So he is the highest fundraising Democrat in the state of Pennsylvania for the first quarter. He raised $344,165.25 to get there right on the money. But it's interesting that although he raised a significant portion when you consider he's the third highest in the state, and that's a crucial part of the state in which Luzerne County in northeast Pennsylvania, it's an area that's traditionally Democrat, but in the 2016 election, that specific part of the state went to bat for Donald Trump for the most part, more than any Republican in recent memory. So I could see that there's some incentive to really for Cartwright to raise some money, considering that if they run a Trump-esque candidate against him, it may get interesting. Now, you'd still expect that his seat is rather safe because, again, it's a typical Democratic district. But the way the 2016 election goes, it's obviously important for him to get out in front and raise that amount of money. Coming in fourth, Representative Costello from Chester County, the Republican, coming in with $340,665, and $236,250 of those dollars were PAC contributions. So you see the big difference between Cartwright and Costello, in which not a significant portion of Cartwright's money raised was from PAC money from political action committees, where Costello's a significant portion was certainly raised through that. And I think that's seen as maybe one of the more vulnerable seats possibly in the state of Pennsylvania, in which I think Chester County it's been conservative enough where Costello has been the representative, but I think there's certain parts of that district that are shifting a bit leftward, where I think Costello will be the favorite in 2018, and we still have plenty of time until that election comes around. But I think at this current time, we could say that there's definitely some need for him to raise that cash right now. Coming up next is Representative Meehan in Delaware County. He raised $263,503. After him, Representative Rufus, again, Republican in Allegheny County. Representative Smucker in Lancaster County at $204,481. Representative Kelly in Butler County. Representative Murphy in Allegheny County. Representative Dent in Lehigh County. Representative Barletta in Luzerne County. Representative Thompson in Center County. And then finally, and they were all Republicans up there. There's only one Democrat out of those out of that whole list so far. And now you have the Democrats and where they've raised money. Of course, Cartwright, who's third, he's the lone Democrat up there in the top 10. Then the rest of that top 10 are all Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania. But then you have Representative Dwight Evans, who represents this district here at Temple University. He raised $106,964.57. $48,500 of that is from PAC contributions. And then the next one at $106,644.04. So again, not far off, only $320 off and 23 cents. But that is Representative Brendan Boyle, who is my congressman in PA 13. His seat's viewed as rather safe. I think it's safe to say. But having said that, he is there. He did break the $100,000 threshold, but he's way down that list. Coming up next is Representative Doyle representing Allegheny County at $80,234. Representative Bob Brady, the chairman of the Philadelphia Democratic Party, coming in at $60,000, $426.64. And then the bottom two are Republicans. Representative Perry from York County at $35,581.64. And the last one, the Republican who's represented Lycoming County, which, by the way, I think this is interesting that he raised the least amount, yet he's the one who's going to be in Trump's administration shortly, is Representative Tom Marino, again, who represented Lycoming County. He raised $34,210 in the first quarter, and $15,500 of that were from PAC contributions. So obviously he took in the least amount in consideration with PACs and overall fundraising. Now it's interesting because they're going to have a special election to fill that seat months down the line. So it'll be interesting to see that pan out. Maybe that's part of the reason why they weren't out in the forefront trying to raise all this money, considering he was tapped for President Trump's administration. And if you want to find that article, again, it's online at politicspa.com, written by Paul Engelkheimer, the managing editor there. The article is entitled, First Quarter Reports Fitzpatrick Top Congressional Fundraiser. So now we know who raised the most money in the first quarter, but now what really is important is who has the most cash in hand. We have the list of all the Democrats and Republicans in the state of Pennsylvania that are congressional leaders at the U.S. level. So the congressman who has the most cash in hand by a significant portion, almost, listen to this, folks, almost $1 million more than the next closest. It's Representative Pat Meehan in Delaware County. He has $2,049,176.82 cash in hand. Significant portion there where I guess he's going to need to put a decent amount into it. That Delaware County is not exactly that much of a conservative stronghold, but he has a significant portion of cash in hand, almost $1 million more to the second person in second, which is Representative Murphy, and the Republican from Allegheny County. He also broke the $1 million threshold. Him and Meehan are the only two that have over $1 million in cash in hand. Murphy has $1,299,634.27 in cash in hand. So they're the only two in the whole state of Pennsylvania at a congressional representatives at the U.S. level that have over $1 million cash in hand. But Meehan, again, significantly ahead of the rest of the crowd. Coming in third, not too far from $1 million in cash in hand, but that's Representative Charlie Dent, the Republican from Lehigh County. He is at $960,488.80. Interesting for him is that, again, we've seen him kind of butt heads with President Trump thus far when he actually did an interview with Meet the Press probably a month or two ago. After the Syrian ban went down, Dent was someone who was critical of it. He thought that was not the right move and it was not implemented correctly. He criticized President Trump for that, although he is a Republican himself. And then Dent butted heads with President Trump as well when it was time to try to get the AHCA passed, the American Health Care Act. Dent said he was not going to support it as well, and President Trump apparently did not have too kind of words for Dent, considering he was opposing some of his legislation. But Dent, he's the third most cash in hand. Coming in fourth is Representative Cartwright of Luzerne County, the Democrat. Again, he was the leading Democrat in campaign money raised in the first quarter. He's also the leading Democrat in cash in hand. He has $853,877.56, by far the highest Democrat. Coming in next from the Republicans is Representative Kelly from Butler County, $835,000 and some change. Then you have Representative Ruthus of Allegheny County. He's at $766,735.15. Then after that, although Representative Bob Brady was to the bottom of the list when it came to amount raised in the first quarter, when it comes to cash in hand, he has plenty of that, though. He has $589,141.05. So he's the second leading Democrat when it comes to cash in hand. Following him, Representative Brendan Boyle, again, in the middle of the pack there, which is interesting, considering they didn't raise much in the first quarter, but they do have a significant portion of cash in hand. Representative Boyle has $525,000, $924.94. He's up there as well. Representative Costello from Chester County coming in right after him. Then after that, Representative Fitzpatrick, who, again, he's in his first term. That's why he doesn't have a ton of cash in hand. He has $461,058.04 there. After him, Representative Schuster, Representative Barletta, Representative Thompson, Representative Doyle, Representative Perry, Representative Smucker, Marino, and then Evans coming in last at only $74,989.26. So there's only one of the representatives that is under $100,000 in cash in hand. That is Representative Evans, who again is a first term representative representing PA2, who took over Shaka Fatah's seat. Doesn't have a ton of cash in hand, but having said that, this is a very safe Democratic seat, so I'm sure he's not too worried about that quite yet. But I want to take it to the other side of the state quickly, because I think this is very interesting. So in this, the city of Pittsburgh, there is currently right now a mayoral race there's actually a primary where Mayor Bill Peduto is he's a Democrat from Pittsburgh and he's the mayor there, but he actually has some challengers, and it's interesting. So there's a Democratic primary going on there. It's very much expected that Peduto is going to come out on top. It'd be a surprise for him to lose this. But having said that, he released his first campaign ad on TV. I'm going to play that for you because I think it's very fascinating what his message is, because he doesn't attack his Democratic challengers. Instead, he uses this 30-second ad to talk about the great things he's done as mayor in Pittsburgh, in his eyes. And he actually uses this 30 seconds to attack Donald Trump, not his Democratic primary challenger. So I'm going to play that ad for you right now.
Mr. President, you say you'll make America great again. Well, Pittsburgh has defined greatness. We got up off the map and grew our city for the first time in 50 years, with billions in new investment, more police and firefighters, job training for thousands of new jobs, and affordable housing in every neighborhood. But Mr. President, if you keep trying to cut health care and after-school programs, even a Patriots fan like you should know, that won't play in Pittsburgh.
So there you have it. That is the campaign ad from Mayor Bill Peduto. The name of the ad is called Great City. And again, he didn't take any of that time to attack his Democratic challengers. Instead, he made a point to kind of tout his record at what he's seen as positive progress that they've made in the city of Pittsburgh under his leadership. And again, I think it's interesting that Western PA and those blue-collar areas out there, Trump did fairly well. When we've had John Fetterman on the program several occasions, and he talked about those union guys who, again, they voted for him. They liked his blue-collar message, but for some reason, Hillary Clinton just did not connect with those voters, and President Trump did. So I think it's an interesting political move that Pittsburgh's obviously a liberal city. You have a Democratic mayor, but it's certainly not as far left as the city of Philadelphia and other cities along the East Coast. So I think it's interesting that Peduto, not taking a shot at any of the Democratic challengers that are trying to take him down, he's taking that first ad out there to attack President Donald Trump. I think one last story I want to touch on, well, two stories specifically for this week I find interesting. We're going to keep it, it's actually not far from here, but in PA8, like we mentioned, Representative Brian Fitzpatrick was the leader in amount of money raised in the first quarter. And to me, it's not shocking considering that district, it's conservative, but it's not Trump conservative. And I think the reason why it's important to keep an eye on it is because he did win by a significant margin over Steve Sanacero. I believe it was around 9%. But the district did not, his specific congressional district did not vote for Donald Trump, really. That district, they're not Trump-style conservative. If anything, they're more traditional conservatives. So I think Democrats are probably licking their chops thinking if there's any vulnerable seats in the state of Pennsylvania, they're going to try their best to tie Fitzpatrick to Trump. Now, of course, we've made it, Fitzpatrick's kind of made it clear that he wants to be the independent voice for Bucks County. He's not going to brand himself as a Trump conservative. And it's interesting. Again, we have a while until his election in 2018. But another prominent conservative who basically went at Donald Trump, and he made it clear his opposition to him, he's doing some fundraising for Fitzpatrick. And that is Governor of Ohio, John Kasich, coming to his defense and helping him raise money, which I think seems like a pretty smart political move considering in that district, I guarantee you, even though they don't like Donald Trump that much, I guarantee that district likes John Kasich a whole lot more. In fundraising emails, Kasich describes Fitzpatrick as a strong voice for common sense conservative reform. So again, keyword there, he's using the word conservative. Again, even though that's still a while away, Kasich, I think that's a part of the state where I could see Kasich doing fairly well there, his message resonating with those voters. And cause I can tell you this right now, I don't think Fitzpatrick's going to be seeking the endorsement and support of Donald Trump in his reelection bid in 2018. I think he'd much rather have the support of a guy like John Kasich. And Fitzpatrick, so far, we know he's come out against Trump. He's come out against the Affordable Health Care Act. He said he was going to vote no. And, of course, that bill was pulled anyway. And also, we know on climate change, Fitzpatrick is split with President Trump as well. So it looks like Fitzpatrick's already trying to distance himself from President Trump there because we know the way history has gone is that in the elections 2 years after a new president is in office, typically, that I think historically speaking over the past 100 years or so, they traditionally lose around 20 seats on average, whatever the party is in power in the White House. Usually that party loses 20 seats in the House. Right now they have, I think it's around a 24-member lead, which again, it's a significant portion right now. But if the way history has gone and if there are 20 seats that Republicans lose, that makes it certainly a lot more interesting because the Republicans currently have a majority in the House, Senate, and they have the White House now. And for them to retain that, they need guys like Brian Fitzpatrick to stay in office. And again, this is interesting that he's certainly one of those that's being targeted by the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Because Trump, guess how much Trump won by that district by? That PA8, Trump won by a total of 0.2%. Not even a whole percent. The man won that district by. And it's a traditional conservative district. But Fitzpatrick won his seat. I was wrong earlier. I said it was around, I thought it was 9. It was just shy. It was at 8.82%. So it's a guy that it's pretty obvious that Representative Fitzpatrick, he did fairly well there, and we expect him I think he would be viewed as someone that may be a little more vulnerable, considering Democrats are going to try to tie him to Trump. But a guy like John Kasich helping him fundraise, I think that is a very smart move that will ultimately benefit him. And the last topic of the day I would like to discuss is, again, the continued coverage of this district attorney's race here in the city of Philadelphia. That primary is May 16th, so we're less than a month away now. And we've had the opportunity here on WHIP to now interview 5 of those candidates. We've had Tariq El-Shabazz, we've had Joe Kahn, Larry Krasner, Jack O'Neill, and the lone Republican, Beth Grossman, as well, joined us in the WHIP studios. And I want to talk about a town hall they had this past week in which it was about decarcerating Philly, and they talked about the need for criminal justice reform, and I found it fascinating. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the event. I believe it was on a Tuesday night in which I had to I was recording the district here on WHIP, our live show, covering all things Philadelphia politics. And I was interested to follow the tweets that followed it. And Helen Ubinas from Philly Inquirer, and I was following tweets from Katie Culinary. And it was interesting to me that Helen Ubinas tweeted out that she thought who the strongest performances were Larry Krasner, number 1, Jack O'Neill, number 2, and El-Shabazz and Khan, 3 and 4. 5 of the out of the 8 candidates, I believe 6 of them were there. Rich Negrin was unable to make it; he was under the weather, and Beth Grossman was not there as well, the Republican candidate. But point being, Ubinas putting out what she thought who the winners were there, and it's interesting to see the back and forth. And I think the most one of the more interesting things to follow leading up to that primary is how Krasner, I could say this since we've spoken to him on the show, we've interviewed him. I was at the Millennial Town Hall, and from what I read from the analysis of the previous debate is that Krasner is distancing himself as much as possible from the rest of the field. He's made it a point to say, look, I'm the real reformer here. I'm the real progressive. Give me a chance. He's like, if these people, those who were challenging him as well, he's like, if they were real reformers, they would have already accomplished these things. But considering Krasner does not have a history in the DA's office, he didn't work there, he says he's the one who can bring real change. Well, we've seen that. I think it's effective that he's by far the most progressive candidate, but it's certainly that the rest of the crowd is going to, the rest of those seeking this office are going to attack him for this, because he's basically saying he's the only progressive up there. And Helen Ubinas put basically out there that at this Decarcerate Philly event, Jack O'Neill decided to take a shot at Krasner, saying that, look, just because you defended these people doesn't mean you're going to bring these reforms to the DA's office. He proudly talked about his 10 years spent there. And we're seeing this continued. I mean, again, this is a rather open primary. There's 7 of the Democrats. I think there's about 3 or 4 that are realistic frontrunners. But having said that, you have Krasner's really distancing himself from the crowd, and I wonder, how's that going to work out? I think it's a strong message he's going to win, I think, a lot of the progressive vote in the city of Philadelphia. But the more and more he distances himself, the more the rest of the crowd is going to attack him. I was at the Millennial Town Hall, in which the closing statements is when it got really interesting, is when all the Democratic candidates and the lone Republican candidate, Grossman, they started going at each other. We saw in that debate is when Jack O'Neill took the first shot at Tariq El-Shabazz, saying he had more experience in him, considering El-Shabazz was only in the office for 6 months, and then O'Neill tried basically tying in El-Shabazz with Seth Williams, trying to say he was he tied them together. And then you had Larry Krasner go on stage at the Millennial Town Hall over a week ago, and he said, look, I'm the only real reformer up here. I'm the real progressive. He's like, when I jumped in this race, it drastically changed it. Everyone else started to change their opinions because they knew I jumped in to try to compare to him. And then he took a shot at Rich Negrin without saying his name, stating that, look, if you're endorsed by the FOP, how are you really that progressive? Now, I just paraphrased that. But point being, he made a point to say that he was the real progressive up there. And then after that, since he kind of called out the rest of the crowd, following him was the lone Republican candidate on stage, Beth Grossman. And she went right at him, saying, look, I am proud of my 21 years in public service. And she wouldn't trade it for anything. She said how that's going to benefit her, and if she were to win the district attorney, because she said she has the experience there. And then after that, you had El-Shabazz kind of attack O'Neill in that He said, O'Neill did not prosecute as many cases as he had. El-Shabazz had more experience, and that's when it got interesting. But I know that this past town hall, specifically, from what I follow from the coverage of all the great journalists here in Philly, is that, one, the message is clear that it's so progressive. Even Will Bunch said it's kind of like a NASCAR race. It's left turn, left turn, left turn. Because I think they're all trying to, and after the Trump's election, I think they're expecting this, a backlash. They're expecting a lot of these progressives who maybe weren't at the polls. Maybe they took a Clinton win for granted. They expect them to come out in droves, specifically in a liberal city like this, in Philadelphia, to vote for a more progressive candidate. A moderate candidate might not do as well here. It's going to be interesting to follow that, and I think it's really neat to see. And we're going to see this next week here at Temple, by the way, which I'd recommend any student, anyone to go, is they're having a town hall forum Tuesday night at here at Temple, which the candidates are going to be there. And I'm interested to see, in the closing weeks until the primary, how I feel like my prediction is that we're going to continue to see a rift between Krasner and the rest of the candidates, where I think he's going to continue to brand himself as someone who is, again, the real progressive. And then I think we're going to see other of those candidates saying, whoa, we're progressive as well, just because we worked in this office. But just because we worked in doesn't mean we can't be as progressive as you. I think we're going to continue to see other candidates take shots at Krasner. But anyway, that's going to do it for this week's edition of State Your Case. Thank you so much for listening. And again, on WHIPradio2.com, there's plenty of more coverage we have on there. We have all of our interviews with other district attorney candidates. So again, our interview with Tarek El-Shabazz, Larry Krasner, Joe Kahn, Jack O'Neill, and Beth Grossman. That's all on WHIPradio2.com. Please follow that. Coming up next week as well, we'll have Rich Negrin on the program for Rational between 4 and 5 p.m. via the phone. He has significant endorsements. He's viewed as one of the favorites in the race. We're going to have him on the line. And the only thing left, we have to get Untermeyer and Denai to get us on the show as well. And then that means we'll have all the candidates. But anyway, for all things state politics, this is State Your Case. Again, check out WHIPradio2.com for more.